breaking barriers and bridging the gaps between patients and doctors. Welcome to Brainstorming with the Docs and your co-hosts, Dr. Glenn Harrison and Dr. Kolby Condos.
All right, everyone, welcome back to this week's episode of Brainstorming with the Docs. I'm Dr. Kolby Condos, my co-host, as always, Dr. Glenn Harrison. How's it going, buddy?
Doing great. Waiting for a snowstorm here in Colorado.
Yeah, it's been kind of interesting weather here as well. We kind of had some rain and sleet and snow, and now everything's sloppy and messy. But yeah,
it seems like there's lots of things changing in this world, right? The weather's changing, other things are changing, hormones are changing.
So today we're talking about something that we actually saw on social media, and it was one of those aha moments where we're like, oh man, we better investigate this and see if this is actually true. Because, you know, everything that you see on the internet is factual. So we dove a little bit into this and, you know, it's pretty staggering. So today we're talking about the loss of testosterone in males. If this is your first time watching or listening to the podcast, please hit like and subscribe and turn on notifications because we're going to continue to roll out content like this on a semi-regular basis. And hopefully you guys find something or hear something that's applicable to you. So let's talk about hormones, specifically testosterone.
Testosterone. More importantly, the loss of testosterone.
Yeah, it's kind of staggering. When we pulled these studies, I was like, this is kind of scary, right?
Yeah, like some of the things that we were talking about, and seeing is, you know, they say the most prominent study in 2007, the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism, which is kind of like the king of this stuff. Said that there's a substantial drop in U.S. men's testosterone since 1980s, with average levels declining about 1% per year. So a good example of that, as they say here, a 21-year-old today will have the same levels of testosterone as a 67-year-old did in the year 2000.
Which is crazy because that was the whole thing that kind of piqued our interest is when you're reading this social media post. It's like, you know, by the year 2050, that men would no longer have adequate levels of testosterone to achieve fertilization.
They would need it's expected there's going to be needed medical assistance, whatever that means, testosterone injections or whatever. Who knows what'll be happening in 2050, but they'll need medical assistance for the vast majority of men in North America. Now, I think this study is only around the United States. Well, I shouldn't say that. There's this other study here.
Well, we pulled other studies for, like West.
Yeah, there was a meta-analysis in 2017. So this is a while back.
Imagine how bad it is now. This is 6 years ago.
Yeah. They said among unselected Western studies, the mean sperm count declined on average of 1.4% per year, with an overall decline in 52.4% between 73 and 2011. So what does that mean, right? These are numbers, we kind of talked about that, but yeah, I guess to take a step back, it doesn't look like when we were digging through, it doesn't look like it's just North America, but Europe, you know, Western societies, Australia, New Zealand, 59% since 73 to 2011. That's unheard of because testosterone is a major key in the existence, I'm going to say the existence of both men and women. Yeah.
And this was also in that meta-analysis that we read. At the current rate of the decline of like spermatogenesis, half of the men in the countries that you just stated, like North America, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, half of all men would have like no sperm left.
That's right.
You know what I mean? There would be none. And then all the other ones that did have it left, it would be very, very, very depressed levels.
So if a 21-year-old has the same rates as a 67-year-old in 2000, what is it going to look like now for a 30-year-old male?
Right.
Are they going to even able to conceive in 10 years at 30 years old, because everyone is having children later because of careers and everything else, at least in Western societies? Are they even going to be able to have children?
Well, and I think that this also, we've covered this in other podcasts as well, when, you know, we go, well, this is a staggering statistic. Why are we not more aware of it? Well, when lab tests are performed, they basically get the standard deviation or the mean of the sample group, right? The sample size. So if everyone's sperm count is low and everyone's testosterone is low, then those lab ranges are actually going to shift to follow that, right? So you might
Yeah.
be like, oh,
So
I'm right in the middle.
exactly. Normal is going to be lower.
Yeah. So it shifts. And then you go, well, I'm right in the middle of the range. Well, yeah, for today, you're in the normal range for today. What would it have looked like in the 70s? You'd have
I was
been,
gonna say
maybe
when
you're not even in there.
well, I was gonna say, a lot of these ranges were determined, especially sex hormones. It was like the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
So what would a male now, say 30 years old, how would their testosterone relate to a male in the 60s?
Yeah. A 30-year-old in the 60s. So that is really, really crazy.
It
And you
is.
might
So
think like, oh, big deal. Like what
mhm.
other than like the production of sperm and fertilizing eggs and stuff like that? Why is it so important? What makes testosterone so important? Well, testosterone is a key hormone in pretty much everything.
That's right. I think the concept of testosterone is all about, sex drive and erections and muscle as just a male hormone is so people are so misled with it. I think the
Yeah.
stereotype of it's just so much more. We'll chat a little bit about that. Of course, libido, you have to have testosterone, men and women, to have libido. Libido is probably number five. I'd say number four, number five. Number four, number five, the primary concern that comes in my office: low libido, men and women. It's not just definitely just not men. Usually, women are the ones who to comment on it. But libido is one. Muscle recovery. You
Yep.
cannot. There's a reason why, why there's so much steroids around athletics now and physical conditioning, because the steroids help people regenerate and recover faster, and it's huge in muscle growth. Now, if you don't even have normal levels of testosterone, what happens then? Um, Energy, right? In cognition, you want to kind of elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah. I mean, your just testosterone play is a main. I mean, that hormone affects your brain big time. If you have low T, I mean, that's one of the big complaints. Like, oh, I just feel foggy. I don't have a lot of energy. And then you're like, as a provider, you're going, oh, is this thyroid? Like, is this testosterone? What is this? Then you have to start, looking into it because your brain uses it just like it uses a thyroid hormone. The only
That's right.
difference is there's only like select receptors versus a receptor on every cell, like it is for thyroid. Your frontal
Mhm.
lobe loves testosterone.
So what happens briefly from a neurological component if there is reduced testosterone?
I
What
mean,
do you
then you're
see?
gonna if when you start looking at like your frontal lobe really loves testosterone, right? Your frontal lobe is kind of like that part that helps you make decisions. So it's gonna impair your ability to make like really rapid decisions. Um, I actually looked up some statistics where it can actually impair your spatial memory.
Hmm?
Um, and it's actually like an antidepressant too. Like you look at if you want to feel good, and you want a clear example of this, like when people say like, "Oh, if you're depressed, like go work out," right? Why
Hmm?
is that? Well, one of the reasons is like when you're building muscle and you're working out like that, you release testosterone, right? So it's going to
Yeah,
impact your brain that way as well.
right.
It's kind of a big deal. It
And,
plays
and
a role in metabolism,
yeah,
you know.
yeah, and it's also an anti-inflammatory hormone.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very powerful anti-inflammatory hormone. So if you don't have this tool, let's call testosterone a tool. If you don't have this tool, the vast majority of processes in the body and longevity are just not going to exist.
Yeah,
So
or they're
so
severely depressed.
yeah, so maybe, jumping into it, what's next, right? What causes all of this stuff? And we've got a few theories on this. And
Yeah, these are our theories, right?
yeah, this is our theories, and there's no black and white. This is the problem. So you can comb the research, and you're not going to see this is it. There's just too many variables in
Yeah,
it.
it's multifaceted, right?
Yeah. So one, we're talking about receptor disruption. I think this is a big one. So for everybody listening, the hormone is made in the gland, for example, testes in this case, or the adrenal glands. Testosterone comes off this gland. It transports it, it takes a transporter to the location, and it pushes the receptor, which is kind of a lock and key mechanism, to the tissue. Maybe it's muscle tissue, so it has to activate the receptor on the muscle tissue for the tissue to work. And the receptor is a very fragile piece, and there's a lot of things that disrupt this receptor. So everything from chemicals to other hormone interference. To chemicals are a big one, though.
Mm-hmm.
Inflammatory signals, and just so many things. So you could have enough testosterone, but if you don't have enough, well,
Well, if you don't
you
have the ability to use it, right?
yeah,
Or you don't have
then
the ability to bind it so that it achieves
uh-huh,
its action, right?
That's right. So there can be a receptor disruption, and then even resistance. So I think other chemicals that play a role in it can create a resistance as well. But then there's other hormones that play into it as well. You want to kind of elaborate on some of the antagonistic hormones?
Yeah. So you look at antagonistic hormones, like estrogen's a big one for testosterone.
Mm-hmm.
And in today's, in today's
It's a mess.
day and
It's a
age,
mess.
it's like there is a metric boatload of exogenous, which means like outside estrogens that are coming in. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not necessarily just like exogenous estrogen, but it's also like chemicals that will allows estrogen to bind more tightly, or increases the sensitivity of estrogen receptors, so they're more effective. And we actually did a podcast just on estrogen. So if you
Mm-hmm.
guys have more questions, you guys can look back on that, and we go a little bit more depth in that. Some of the places you get it, like plastics, that kind of stuff. Um, and those are antagonistic, which means like if it's working, then the other one's not.
That's right.
So
They're
pretty
working
much.
against that hormone,
Yeah.
and it's a
So if you have,
beautiful.
so it's like a checks and balances until one's
Mhm.
unchecked, right?
That's right.
So if you have a metric boatload of estrogen or a high estrogen load, you are not going to actually be able to use your testosterone. And there's actually in some instances where you'll convert testosterone into more
Uh-huh.
estrogen.
That's
So
right. That's a big one. I think that's a
yeah,
very, very big component to this whole story. And
yeah,
then there's other things. I know when we're digging through it, testosterone production starts at a young age, and it kind of sets the stage of how it's going to develop. There's so many things in develop physiological development in children, boys and girls, that just has to happen at a young age, or actually can get it stunted. And testosterone production is the same. So roughhousing, little boys that are playing rough, or kids in general that are playing rough and wrestling and all of that. This is a primitive behavior. This is part of play. And now there's a lot of social rules in the Western world that they can't do this. That it's maybe going against the grain. And if they're not allowed to do this, they kind of get deprogrammed to not do that. And what happens? They can't make proper, there can't be proper testosterone production. So testosterone is not this misogynistic hormone that some circles say it is. It's literally life or death, health and
yeah,
happiness,
you need
or
it.
sickness and misery. It's really that. And testosterone isn't one of these crazy, off the chain, off the cuff reacting. No, a healthy testosterone and proper testosterone is control.
Yeah, it
That's
helps you
what it
balance
is.
pretty much everything in your life,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, it
You
is.
want to see people that can suffer, that are
Mhm.
suffering. Look at people that aren't making enough, and that's why
That's
it's become so popular. That's
that,
why you
that,
see these commercials like, you have low sex drive, you have low libido, you have brain fog and difficulty concentrating, and you're absolutely no energy, and you're not interested in your partner at all.
yeah,
Let's look into testosterone, right?
exactly.
Which is
And
great, but it's only looking at it at face value, right? We're
that's
not
right.
looking at it any deeper than, oh,
Mhm.
we got low
An
testosterone. What are we gonna
injection.
do? Yeah, let's do some replacement or whatever. Like
Mhm.
that's as deep as it goes. What you need to do, and this is kind of how both of us practice. Like you need to have complete hormone panels, right? You need to have the whole picture so you can go, okay, we have a lot of this. We don't have a lot of this. Where are some places that we're getting all this extra stuff that's not supposed to be there? How can we get rid of it? And how can we bring the other one up?
That's exactly right. Yeah. So, social rules are one. But in clinic, I see a lot of these things. So for kind of examples of this, I do see a lot for men and women, but we'll see this as we talked about this estrogen dominance, and their testosterone is inhibited. But I'm trying to think, even in my clinic, in 8-10 years, I have seen more, and it's just coming to me now. I'm just thinking of this. I have seen uh, lower testosterone in some of the cases than I've ever seen even 10 years ago. Now, I don't know if it's just, maybe I'm collecting more of those people coming in my door. I don't know. But, the 25-year-olds with 220 level
Yeah.
testosterone, like that's madness. They
Yeah.
should be in the 900s. They should
Yeah.
be in the 900s. So I don't know. Maybe I'm looking at it closer now, or maybe just according to the statistics, in 10 years' time, there's 10% of testosterone on average going down.
Kind of a big deal. So if this sounds like you or someone you know that has issues with T,
Hmm?
I mean, this can impact everybody. It impacts some
That's right.
members of my family, so it's important to get it looked at.
Mhm.
Um, if you have questions, please feel free to reach out for us. If you're in the Colorado area or you're in the Minnesota area and you would like some help with this stuff, we're more than happy to take you on as a patient.
Yeah.
You can get a hold of us. Our information to get a hold of us at the podcast is info@brainstormingwiththedocs.com. You can get a hold of Dr. Glenn at drgharrison.com. You can get a hold of me at northlakeschiropractic.com. Those are all in the description. And yeah, I mean, don't suffer in silence. Like, get some help.
That's right. And don't be embarrassed of something like low testosterone, because you could look around you, men or women, and the 80% of the people around you could be suffering with it too, but they're not talking about it. So get it corrected, because it's a lot more than just, again, sex drive and muscle building. It is every other aspect of health. So, and everybody can do it. So.
All right, man. Well, this is a good one. Kind of impactful. Hopefully you guys got some value out of it. So stay tuned, because we're going to keep doing ones like this in the future.
As long as we can. As long as we have enough testosterone, right?
That's right.
Okay.
All right, buddy. Well, I'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.